everyone, this is Chad Redding here at the Warren. This evening I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of my yard, and what I'm going to do is show you a couple of edible, what some people call weeds, that are actually common edible plants here in Pennsylvania. So these are common in the mid-Atlantic, northeast, some in the southeast, and there are some variations locally, you know, between states and stuff like that. So also, some of the names might be different, so that those of you down in the southeast might call these different. These are what I know them as, what I grew up knowing them as. Also, when you eat any wild edibles, don't eat any that are near a road. You know, be at least 50 to 100 feet back from the road, and also do your research and be safe, because there are a lot that look the same. So, you know, just to let you know that. So anyways, without further ado, let's get on here. So right away, we're starting out with a mulberry tree. And as you can see, these are the typical leaves on a mulberry. And this is the actual mulberry itself. And these are really common here in south central Pennsylvania. They are the first berry that comes in the season here. So normally you'll see tons of animals, you know, even fish. I've seen them where they're over top of a lake and the mulberries are falling in and the fish are eating them. So this is one of the first berry food sources that come in here in Pennsylvania. So that's the tree, that's the mulberry. And that's pretty self-explanatory, you know, that's definitely, you know, it's an edible fruit. So let's move on here. Next one we have here is what we call, I'm gonna wait here a moment, we got a truck going by, which is fine, is what we call here in the Pigeon Hills a black raspberry. And this is one that is actually ripe right now. And we have two varieties of wild raspberries here in south central Pennsylvania, in this area locally. This one is the black raspberry, which I said, and you can tell the difference between that and the one that is a red in the fact that the stems are silver, you have silver under the leaf, and you only have a couple of thorns every now and then on the stems. This one is just starting to come in right now. And the red raspberry, which is red wild raspberry in this area, I don't have any in this particular patch of berries right now, comes in last. And right now that's at like a flowering stage, and it's kind of like a red fuzzy looking flower. And the difference between that one and this black one is the stems are like fuzzier. There's more thorns. They're fuzzier, and the thorns are a reddish color. The leaves are also silver underlaid, like that raspberry. And while we're here, I'm going to show you something that you might think is a raspberry, but it's actually not. Let me find it here. Right here, right here. This is actually a blackberry. And you can see the difference in the shape of the stem. So the stem is actually square shaped, and the thorns, there's more thorns. They don't come in till later. So here's the blackberry bush, and as you can see, these are still green. The fruits are a little longer, and they are also a compound berry like the black and the red raspberry. So just a quick recap. So the black raspberry has a silver stem, a couple thorns, silver under the leaves. The red variant has a fuzzy stem, reddish, more thorns, reddish thorns, and it also has silver in the leaves. Blackberries have a squarish stem, The thorns are usually a little larger and they're sporadic. No silver under the leaves whatsoever. As you can see, they're just green. So in order of ripening, the mulberries come in first, the black raspberries come in next, the blackberries will actually come in after them, and then the red raspberries will come in last. So, and here's another thing to know. Any compound berry, and when I say compound berry, I mean like this. Really good. Any compound berry anywhere in the world is safe to eat. So, no matter where you are, if you have a compound berry like that, you're good to eat. So, let's move on. Let's go on to the next one. So we're kind of just moving along here. Now this is a large variant. This is a large version of this tree. And for those of you might know just by the leaf, and that's how we're going to identify this. This is the sassafras tree. Now this particular one is pretty big, and the way you can identify that is you have these mitten-like leaves. Some of the leaves, I'm going to just pull a couple leaves off here. Right away, when you pull the leaves, they smell like root beer, and this used to be the source of the root beer flavoring. So you have 3 leaves on this tree. You have a single lobe, the mitten, just 2 lobes, and you have a 3 lobe. So those are the 3 lobes on the sassafras tree. And what this tree is good for is the roots. The roots is the source of all the nutrients and the good stuff in that tree. The First Nations people used to take the root and make a drink out of it, which was the original root beer, and that would be one of the first things they would get in the spring. The time to get that is in the spring because the roots are starting to waken up, and the sap is flowing, and all the nutrients have been stored in the roots for the winter. So you want to get that first when spring starts up, before the tree starts to get green. And the leaves, the wood, the bark, it all smells like root beer. So that's a really good one to know. So we're going to move on to the next spot here. Okay, so we moved on to another one. Now the first I guess you could say 5 that I showed you were really, really easy. So here's another one, and a lot of people know this one, but I'm going to share this with you. And that's this plant right here. And this is common in a lot of people's yards. Here's the leaf. This is broadleaf plantain. You can always identify it by the leaf and this little piece, the flower piece that comes up. And this also is known by another common name as white man's foot, because this was brought here by the settlers. And it's wild. It grows wild all over the eastern United States and a lot of other places. And this is also edible. You can eat this raw. I've never cooked it, and I usually eat it in a salad. Another use that this has is actually has a anti-inflammatory component to it. So if you were like get a bee sting or burn yourself, I'll pull the stinger out for the bee sting, chew it up in my mouth, and put it on there for a while, and usually the swelling and the pain will go away. So that's another really useful plant. So let's go over here. All right, go ahead. Okay, so here we have another one, and this is just further up in the yard here. And for those of you probably already guessed, you can tell by the sawtooth leaf, this flower isn't open, but obviously this is a dandelion. And this is another non-native. And once again, this was brought here by the settlers. Over in Europe, they have they'll sell them in markets, and the leaves are like this broad. So, and then we got them here, we consider it a weed, but this is another one that's really good. The flowers are edible. very edible. The leaves are also edible. I've actually eaten this one raw and cooked. They're better when they're younger because they do get a little bitter, but I personally like bitter greens. The root is also useful. Can be used as a coffee alternative. So if you roast the root and grind it up, it makes a good coffee. So that's the dandelion. That's another one that we have here. Okay, here we are. So now I've moved up from the woods at the Warren and I've come closer to the house. And once I got 3 plants just right here in this area that I know that are edible. So let's start with one of my favorites, and this is a sorrel. And this is called sheep sorrel. And you can tell sheep sorrel, and why it's called sheep sorrel, wife's gonna take it there. Why it's called sheep sorrel, I honestly don't know. I guess it looks like a sheep's head from the top. You can always tell sheep sorrel because it has this very distinctive tri-leaf. It's a very, very good green. Tastes like lemon. So if you like a lemon flavor, this is the one for you. This is one of my favorites. It's not as strong as another kind of sorrel that I'm going to show you here in a bit, but it's really good. What gives it its lemon flavor is, I think it's salicylic acid. So if you have gout, you don't want to eat a lot of this because gout is too much salicylic acid, but other than that, it's really good for you. Next we have here right beside it. Now the flowers are gone now because usually the flowers come out in the spring. Violet. And this is another one that's really, really good. You know, it's really good for you. And you can always tell violet because it's got this curled leaf. And it's very mild tasting, and that's a really good one in the spring because the flowers are also really edible and just really, really good. So here we have the violet. You know, not bad tasting, y'all. It's not real. It's not as bitter as like a dandelion or a bitey, and it's really tender. It's a really good one. Now the third one we got here. And this is one that has a lot of different names. It just depends on the area you're in. Now this is a small one. And what this is called Creeping Charlie, or gill over the grass. This was originally used as a flavoring in beer. So that's why it has the name gill over the grass, because originally, you know, you would say, I want a gill of beer. So this one has a very distinctive smell to it. It's in the mint family, so it's somewhat a little strong. Another thing, have my wife come here, I'll show her this. Mints, all mints have a square stem. So as you can see, this is in the mint family, it has a square stem. And you know, this is another one that's edible. It's kind of strong tasting, like I said, it has almost like a piney taste or feel to it. And like I said, that was originally used for in beer. So that one I think is another non-native. The violet and the sheep sorrel are natives. So I'm going to show you another one here, even though this one isn't native, but we grow it here because this stuff is really good for your stomach and to help you sleep. And that is this here. This is catnip. And once again, you have a square stem. So this is in the mint family. And unlike for cats, which it is a stimulant, for us humans, it actually will ease your stomach and help you go to sleep. So even though this grows natively, I actually plant this because I like this plant, because I use a lot of it, because if I have problems with my stomach or I need to get to sleep, I'll make some tea out of this, and whether it's green or dried, I'm out within a half hour. So I just figured I'd show that one. That one's kind of one I like. So on to the next one. Okay, now here we are again, another spot, and we got two more right here. So I showed you this stuff here earlier, and this is the broad leaf plantain. Right here we have the other variety, and you can see the flowers are a little different and the leaf is a little different. Both leaves are veined the same. This is the narrow leaf variety. So it's the same as this, just narrow versus wide, and it has the same benefits. Now the last one I'm going to show you for this video is one that is actually my favorite, and is this stuff right here. Looks like a shamrock. So you have 3 heart-shaped leaves. There are little yellow flowers with it that are like 5 and a 5 radius. And this is wood sorrel. And just like the sheep sorrel, this has the same lemony hop. And I really like this one. It's got a lot of lemon flavor into it. Very easy to identify by the 5 heart-shaped lobes. Shamrock. This is not a clover. It's actually a sorrel. And the whole thing is edible. Yeah, you can see the clover, see the difference. This whole thing is edible. The stem, the flowers, and the leaves. Not the roots, but the whole upper. You can make a lemonade out of this, like a lemonade type thing if you look online. And this is one of my favorites. So, and then they come in different sizes. I've seen some wood sorrel in the woods that are like big and round. So, like I was going to say, I've seen some wood sorrel in the woods that are like this round. So it's really good. So, like I said, do your research. You know, I'm knowledgeable, but there are a lot of people that know way more than me. And I'm just kind of introducing you to just some weeds in your yard here, in anybody's yard, that are edible. Make sure that you're not using any pesticides or any chemicals. You don't have animals. You know, wild animals are going to do it, but your dogs aren't going to the bathroom on that. And make sure you don't have any, your neighbors don't have any runoff from chemicals on their lawn coming in. And wash them. And like I said, stay away from roads. Do your research. There are a lot of other medicinal values. I just kind of wanted to just briefly touch on some ones that are just here in the yard. And I'll be doing some more. So until next time, fair weather and safe journeys.